to another edition of the 49 Carats podcast. I'm your host, Steph, and I am joined here with my co-host of the day, Andrew Pasquini of the Sprint Right Option podcast. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Allow me to be the first, Steph, to congratulate you on your Colorado Avalanche making the NHL final. Sorry, I got a lot of sounds going in my ears. Okay, that's weird. There we go. We're back. We're good. We're good. But allow me to be the first to congratulate your Avalanche on making the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, my Avalanche. That's interesting because I just became a hockey fan as of like last week. So it's exciting. You can imagine how excited I am. I just became a hockey fan.
Yeah.
And my team is already in the Stanley Cup final. So
It's funny how that works. You're a lifelong fan of a football team that doesn't seem to make it that far too often. And within the first 2 weeks of you being an Avalanche fan, it's there.
how did it happen?
Beautiful.
Magical,
You love it.
magical stuff. But yes, I'll definitely be watching that. It's actually the playoff games have been really exciting. So good stuff there. Guys, I just want to remind you guys that I have a giveaway going on right now. Giving away a signed Frank Gore jersey. Okay, so what you got to do to be entered: one, you got to subscribe to the channel, so make sure you subscribed. If you were already subscribed before today, great, like you already did half of the work. The second step is you got to reply with the screenshot of your sub. Okay, so you could do that either via Twitter by going to Twitter at Stragosaurus as my account. Go to the pin tweet and reply with the screenshot. Other option, if you don't have Twitter, that sucks. Well, actually, good for you because Twitter is terrible.
Yeah.
But if you don't have Twitter, you can also enter via Instagram at Stragosaurus. Again, that's my username. Go ahead and just DM me your screenshot there. Okay. That's your other way to enter. But again, like I said, you have to be subscribed. That is rule number 1. Okay. And I'll be announcing the winner of that giveaway June 21st. So exciting stuff. Love Frank Gore. And hopefully, one of you guys can win that jersey. Keep a piece of that 49ers legend forever. All right. Melissa, what's going on? 49ers Lakers for life. Andrew, man buns.
That was requested. I
actually requested that Andrew wear the man bun, the space buns today, and I was just so excited that
they're a little loose. I haven't done them in a while, but when Steph asks you to do something, you gotta, especially if she's putting you on the 49 Carats podcast, you gotta do what she says.
They look great. This is my favorite look. Okay. So yeah, very, very glad that, you listened. All right. We're going to talk 49ers mandatory minicamp. But before we do that, I just wanted to bring back an old segment of the 49 Carats podcast. For those of you who are OG fans of the pod, you might remember some of our segments. We have This Day in 49ers History. We have Twitter Tizzy. We have Cap or No Cap. Okay, so the one that I'm bringing back today is This Day in 49ers History. Okay, and for this one, I have a really great little tidbit that I got from Twitter account Random 49ers. Great account to follow. Okay, I get most of my little history tidbits from them. They don't follow me back, but I'm a great fan of them. If they're watching, I mean, I love a follow back. I'm a big fan. But June 3rd, 2013, you know what happened? Jim Harbaugh, big fan of Judge Judy, and he, with his dad, was invited to be part of the audience. Let's take a quick look at,
separate addresses.
Look at him. He's glowing. He's glowing. Like he's locked in. I've never seen him this happy. We love that for him. Do you remember that moment, Andrew?
It's amazing because we watched that man coach the 49ers for 5 years. He never smiled once. Never. Not once did he smile. And he's on Judge Judy for one episode. And I don't think that man was happier when he beat Ohio State this past year. I think if he had to power rank his days, most important days of his life, one was probably getting drafted to the NFL because he's a football guy. straight. He's a football guy. 2, probably the birth of his kids. 3, Judge Judy. 4,
Absolutely.
wedding day. And I think that's his order. He's such a football guy. I love him. I miss him. And nothing against Kyle Shanahan. Love Kyle Shanahan. I don't think there's anything Kyle Shanahan can do, and maybe even winning a Super Bowl, to get him to pass Jim Harbaugh on my list of all-time 49er head coaches.
Yeah, let's look at that smile one more time, because
they were separate addresses. You asked if they were separate.
All right, yeah. Great stuff. So that happened June 3rd, 2013. We love good memories like that. We don't get many of them. So yeah, that's a happy memory in 49er land. But let's just go right into it. Mandatory minicamp. Okay, there's some good stuff to talk about here. They were actually supposed to have mandatory minicamp starting next week, but I guess Kyle Shanahan moved it up. So we get some content a week early. We can't complain about that. One of the first things I want to talk about here, Jimmy Garoppolo. We heard that he was going to be excused from mandatory minicamp. Great tweet from good friend of the pod, Jason Aponte. You might know him, Andrew, actually.
No, decently well.
So yeah, he was excused from showing up. You know, as we know, he's still rehabbing from his surgery. Really no point for him to show up. You know what I thought, though, Andrew? I was like, okay, well, he's not going to show up because he's out of the picture. Like, Trey Lance is the quarterback now. Mm-hmm. You know, there's no point for him to show up at any point this offseason. But you know what happened? Kyle Shanahan today, he said that if Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy and if he's not traded by training camp, he expects Garoppolo to be there. And I don't know if it's just me, but that kind of pisses me off. Like, that kind of annoyed me. What do you think about that? Because I know you're a little more level-headed than I am. What did you make of that?
Everything is being said for a reason. The 49ers, the reason you haven't heard Kyle Shanahan come out and say Trey Lance's quarterback, I know he's alluded to it so many times, but the reason he hasn't come out and said it is there's still some shred of trade value, right? It's not going to be that. See, remember the good old days back in March? Like, oh, maybe a second round pick will get it done. We're way beyond that point, right? There's still some sort of trade value. Kyle Shanahan needs to hold on to that. So he needs to play the cards right. I was very surprised because last week he came out and said something along the lines of, yeah, trades were on the table until the shoulder happened. And he said something along the lines of, you know, we're going to be looking to move him. And that was the most committed I've heard a Kyle Shanahan in a very long time. But when it comes down to it, I saw Rappaport, and I don't know if I'm spoiling something for you. I apologize if I am. Saying that he still sees a chance where Garoppolo's playing or whatever it is. The Niners have to let that stuff get out, just because if they say Trey Lance is starting week 1, everybody knows they're not going to keep a backup worth $26 million on that bench. There would be no trade value, which I still think the most likely scenario out of all of this is a release. I don't think the Browns are necessarily in the position to trade a Baker Mayfield right now. Their other quarterback has some issues going on. I don't know if you've seen, but that situation's a little more open than people like to think. Carolina, they're the possibility of Garoppolo. That's the name that's been mentioned. Garoppolo Mayfield. But if the Niners come out and say the second he passes a physical, you know, we're trading him. He's not going to be here no matter what. Now Carolina, let's pretend that's the example. Why do they need to trade for him? He's not going to be there. So just wait till the Niners release him. You name a price. So the Niners are keeping whatever trade value they have. So I think maybe Shanahan realized last week he probably went a little too far over the ledge in his commitment to Trey Lance, and specifically mentioning the trade of Garoppolo, and tried to reel it a little back today. I'm big in the camp, Steph, of everything's a lie until it's the truth, and everything's the truth until it's a lie. And that's just kind of the game we're playing at this point.
Yeah, I'm glad you did mention the Ian Rappaport thing. I wasn't going to talk about it because I'm just like, I'm so tired of hearing anyone say that at this point, because, you know, I just don't think it's true.
Well,
I
can I put it
totally
in the way I think about it though? Just real quick, don't mean to cut you off. Is if the Niners have Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster come week 1, what are you more frustrated about? A Jimmy Garoppolo starting week 1 or a $26 million quarterback being on the bench? And that's why I don't think he's even making this roster. Right? Like I don't think he's making this roster, period. But in the world that Rappaport is creating, the Ian Rappaport 49ers cinematic universe, is if Garoppolo's on this roster, yes, he's gonna have to play. But that's only because of the contract. You can't pay a guy $26 million to sit on the bench. We're not gonna get to that point. So that's why I think that the saying of, if he's on the roster, he could start. Yeah, because you're not going to pay a guy $26 million to sit on the bench. That's just what it is.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you there. Albert Breer, actually the same day on the same podcast. So it was Ian Rappaport on the Pat McAfee pod, and then later in the same episode, Albert Breer was on it, and he actually said that 49ers are I think he mentioned the Panthers. Yeah. As early as next week or something like that, Jimmy Garoppolo might be throwing, which is interesting because I think Kyle Shanahan said end of July. So I don't know if those timelines really match. But the point is, as soon as Jimmy Garoppolo starts throwing again, the window of opportunity opens back up. Okay. So, and we've been you this. Okay. We know. Yeah. It's just nice to have that reaffirmed hashtag fits my narrative, especially 20 minutes after Ian Rappaport said that. So,
I'm so excited for the Jimmy Garoppolo flight updates. I'm really excited for it. Just Jimmy Garoppolo's on a plane. Where's he going? I'm really excited because we didn't have enough of that with Deebo. It's been amazing because we've gone Garoppolo into Deebo just so seamlessly. And I'm really excited for the second Garoppolo starts throwing. We're just going to seamlessly go back into Jimmy. It's a really amazing. Being a 49ers fan is a blessing, and we love it.
Never a dull moment, that's for sure. But so this time we're going to go from Jimmy Garoppolo to Deebo Samuel, at least in this podcast, because we're done talking about Jimmy for now. Okay. We know that, they're going to trade him, or they're going to try to trade him. All right. That's it. Deebo Samuel, he was at Mandatory Minicamp. That's kind of a big deal. You know who else was there? Nick Bosa, also kind of a big deal. Both of those guys in line for new contracts. So, for Deebo, it was a big deal because he's been, we know there's a lot of this stuff that was happening, and there was talk that, maybe he might hold out, he wanted to get traded, things like that. So, but we also knew that if he did skip mandatory minicamp, he was going to be fined. So obviously not something he was down to do this time. So he was in the building as of yesterday, even before today, for his physical. And I would just say, I think it's a good thing. I think this is beyond him just showing up because he wants to avoid fines. I think this is really a step in the right direction. I know not everyone thinks that, but I am on the side of optimism here. Curious what you think.
I think everything since the 10th pick in the draft was announced has been positive for the 49ers Deebo Samuel situation. Today, I was a little more tame on it just because the idea of he's still on a rookie contract. Those daily fines are going to be quite a bit at some point. But I don't think it hurts. And I'm very curious because you mentioned earlier that this wasn't a mandatory training camp until yesterday or Sunday or whatever day it was. Today's Tuesday, right? Yeah. So Sunday, Monday, that's when it was a mandatory. Maybe this is some sort of power play by the 49ers. I don't know. Everything means nothing until it means something, right? So I don't know how much of today is Deebo Samuel coming in to avoid fines or how much it is Deebo Samuel's fine with the current situation. But I think the best way to look at it is, yes, if Deebo Samuel is doing this to avoid fines, that's one thing. But now we are in the realm of possibilities where John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, Deebo Samuel, all the decision makers are under the same roof at one time. And that's really what's important here. Whether or not Deebo showing up to camp is him, doing the avoiding fine or actually wanting to be their thing, I think is irrelevant because they are under the same roof. And I know they were under the same roof at Chase Center last week with half of them up in the box and half of them not, but they're in the same roof in Santa Clara. And I think that's very important. I think things will start moving a little smoother. And ideally it's something that's as easy as, because the reports are to be true. And I know there was rumors all over the place that Deebo didn't like his role in the offense and he wants to be paid like a receiver, all this stuff. If all it takes is a conversation of Deebo, we're not going to use you as a running back. We might pipe it in every so often just because it's part of this offense, getting you the ball, as long as it's more of a gadget play than a consistent thing. If it's as simple as that, this should happen relatively quick, right? And as we said, we've seen this all the time. We've seen this so many times with the Niners with different kind of resolutions, right? We saw it with DeForest Buckner. He gets traded right away. We saw it with Fred Warner. He wants his contract. The Niners gave it to him. We saw it with George Kittle where he wanted his contract. The Niners waited to the last minute to get it done. And obviously, I think the situation was always going to be closer to the Kittle situation. I don't think he's going to get traded. I think he's going to get the money he wants. It's really like, I think people get hung up on the average valuation of the contracts of $25 million per year. Mm-hmm. This isn't baseball. This isn't a sport where it's all fully guaranteed up front, evenly distributed, all this stuff. The Niners can make it so it's an AAV of $25 million. You can do the 4-year, $100 million. There's your $25 million, where the first year is not that big of a cap hit. The second year is not that big of a cap hit. The third year is where it really jumps off. But the fourth and fifth year, because we're extending off of this year, are very good dead cap numbers for the Niners, to where it balances out more. Maybe it's 65 guaranteed. What did AJ Brown get? Whatever, plus one penny of what AJ Brown got. So Deebo said he got more. That sort of thing. So it's very good they're under the same roof. I don't want to tell you if it's Deebo wants to be there or Deebo's avoiding fines, because I don't know the answer to that. Just take away they're all in Santa Clara. We don't have to track flights anymore. They're all in Santa Clara right now.
Yeah, we don't have to check social media, and I don't have to stalk his Instagram anymore. No. But okay, the reason that you made a good point. They're in the same building, in the same vicinity. They're just seeing each other face to face. It's a good opportunity for some productive conversations to take place. Another reason that I think that this is more than just avoiding fines. I mean, he could have just been there, right, and not been fined. He did a little more than just be there. He was on the field. You see him here. He's walking next to Kinlaw. He looks very tiny next to Kinlaw, by the way. Sorry for the audio listeners. You can't see this, but we're looking at Deebo Samuel. He's walking on the field, and he's in a little bit, he's going to start running sprints, okay? Full-on sprints. Like, these are things he didn't necessarily need to do. No, yeah. I mean, he just needed to be there. He could have watched for all we cared. He was running sprints. Good sign. He hit the weight room shortly after this. So that to me is like the biggest takeaway, and why I think not only was this, more than just not wanting to be fined, but I think this also tells me that this is heading towards a really good direction in terms of like contract negotiations.
And I was never, not to be that guy, because I don't want to be that guy. I was never worried about any of it, right? I get this. I get the excitement of the social media stuff, right? And the excitement of, he removed everything. He wants to leave. But we've seen this. We have two very comparable situations right now with DK Metcalf and AJ Brown. They have the same agent. All three of them are second round receivers. All three of them are coming up on some sort of payday. Deebo Samuel was the only one who was as drastic as removing all the content from his social media. I think AJ Brown maybe did it once. I don't follow the Titans. I'm sorry. You have DK Metcalf, who there was never really any noise coming out of it. Well, now we look at it on June 7th. AJ Brown's at camp. It's just not with the Titans. He's on the Eagles now. Right. Deebo Samuel's at camp. He still doesn't have his contract extension, but he's there. DK Metcalf isn't at camp. So it seems the one who was the loudest with his displeasures, because even AJ Brown getting traded, we didn't, and maybe it's because if there's Titan fans here, tell me I'm wrong. I'm glad if you tell me I'm wrong. There didn't seem to be that much of a nuclear reaction from AJ Brown when the Titans were like, hey, let's slow down, let's figure this out. It was very quiet until he got traded. I don't think anybody had him getting traded on the draft night. Everybody had Deebo getting traded. Deebo is the only one at camp with the team that drafted him right this second. I think that means something, right? I think that means more than anything of him deleting on social media could have meant. It means more than anything his brother could have said on a Facebook comment. Is Deebo Samuel is the only one out of those three who are at training camp and at camps with his current team. I think that's more of a positive than anything else we've seen. And I think it's more of a positive than any of the quote unquote negatives we saw with the social media stuff.
Right. And I mean, this situation was always going to lead to a fork in the road once we got to these mandatory things, the training camp and all that. So now, like, we finally have an answer. Kyle Shanahan spoke to the media today as well. I mean, he is still confident as ever that things will get worked out. Quote from Shanahan, I think it's always been all right. Speaking about the relationship between him and Deebo, I don't think the relationship was ever too far away to not get back to normal. So yeah, just great positive things happening. Shanahan was also asked if Deebo still wants to be traded. He didn't answer. Said that was a question for Deebo. That's fair. I'm still curious, but we're not going to talk to Deebo, or no one's going to ask him that right now. So, but Kyle Shanahan said, I love our relationship with Deebo, and hopefully that will help us be able to solve this contractually before the season. And another thing that I think was a good takeaway from today, Deebo's been talking to Trent Williams, getting some advice about this whole contract negotiation thing from him. Trent Williams, as we know, is one of the players who recently got a contract extension from the team. There were reports about, some bumps in the road in that negotiation as well. Trent Williams took it all in stride. Deebo Samuel picking up a few pointers from him. That to me is a great thing as well. And as Trent Williams said in this quote here, it just shows how mature Deebo Samuel is by showing up to minicamp now. So again, I mean, all of this just points to this being a positive step in the right direction. So I think I feel good about it.
And the Kyle Shanahan quote, right? It's another point that I think things are. We're never at a point where the trade negotiation, like the trade thing, was that real, because the trade was so loud to a point. Jason and I went live during the draft for Sprint Right Option podcast just in case. Like, that's how we went from we're not recording in the first round because what are we doing to well, this might happen. And you notice how when the trade doesn't happen, the trade requests for Deebo Samuel go away. It's almost like they were using the draft as leverage to try and get what they want. But the second they realize that, because now the Niners aren't going to trade him, there's no reason to,
right,
because you could trade him to the Jets right now for their first round pick. And I know it's the Jets and people are going to giggle and laugh, but there's a world that exists right now that the Jets make the playoffs next year. And that pick that you could have gotten, the 10th pick, and I know obviously the offer the Jets sent was not good at all. Like nobody should have taken that. Nobody should have taken that.
Yeah.
But, if the Niners trade him for a first-round pick now, you don't know if that's going to be a top 10 pick or a bottom 10 pick. And you notice how the trade requests kind of went away. Mm-hmm. So I think the draft was always a sort of thing that was, hey, let's pick a team in the top 10. Hey, the Jets, they have 3 picks. Let's throw their name out there. They're interested in Deebo, so why are you should trade us. The Niners holding firm. I think the second that 10th pick passed by, that's when I was in the camp if he's getting extended. And everything has pointed that direction up to this point. He's here. There's no trade requests, all this stuff. For me, it's a matter of when, not if.
Yep. I'm with you there. And I don't think, the trade requests exists at this point either. I mean, he doesn't even have to say it. I'm sure everyone understands that at this point, maybe. But let's talk about the other guy who hadn't been, in any of the voluntary workouts to this point. Nick Bosa with his huge quads and all. He is back, and we're very happy to see it. One interesting thing about Bosa, Shanahan did say that his contract talks have not started yet. That, to me personally, that wasn't that big of a surprise because, I think they've been so focused on Deebo Samuel, and with these big contracts, when there's a couple players kind of in line for one, they like to do them one at a time, right? And it makes most sense, right? So I think Deebo Samuel, obviously the main focus at this point in time. Nick Bosa, as soon as Deebo gets signed, they're going to start working on Nick Bosa's contract, I'm sure. And so Bosa's entering the final year of his rookie deal. We just saw Aaron Donald get a new contract, which makes things, somewhat interesting. Donald now the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. That was one thing that I know a lot of people talk about Bosa wanting to be the highest paid non-quarterback. And, I've even heard that he might want his contract fully guaranteed. I don't know about that. I don't know. But, I could say we're looking at a tweet from David Lombardi. Aaron Donald sitting at 31.6 million APY, sits at number one among defensive linemen for APY. Number 2, TJ Watt with 28 million. Number 3, Joey Bosa at 27 million. And I'm going to just stop right there because I think that is Nick Bosa's range, right? Among these three. Obviously he's going to get more than his brother. Personally, I would give him a little bit less than Aaron Donald, maybe more than TJ Watt. What do you think? I'm no cap guru, so I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a cap guru either. But again, this is the average numbers. So when you're looking at this, I think the reason that his Mr. Donald's average, I don't know why I call him Mr. Donald, Aaron Donald's average is so high is it's over a 3-year contract, 3 years, 95 million. I like to think that Nick Bosa is going to be closer to that 4 or 5 years. So that's already going to hurt his average, maybe just a little bit. But even the way the current contract's laid out, his cap hit in 2022 is $24 million. And this is Aaron Donald, not Bosa. 2023, it's $38 million. And then they have a $19 or $14 million worth of savings roughly if they cut him after that second year. So yes, the 31 million is big, but realistically, it's not quite that. So I don't think he's going to get to the Aaron Donald point just because he's going to get a longer term contract. It's probably going to be closer to the TJ Watt situation than anything else. He's definitely going to get more than Joey. What helps the Niners, especially in terms of Deebo, is they've already picked up his 5th-year option, I believe. So this is the final year of his rookie deal, but he's got that 5th-year contract or that 5th-year option coming up. So he's actually here for 2 years. That's why the Niners don't have to do anything yet. Is Deebo doesn't have that 5th-year option. This is his last year with the Niners. If they don't extend him at this point, he'll be a free agent next new offseason. Nick Bosa, he's going to get another year. So Niners, no rush. I'm not even going to be worried about it if it gets through this offseason and he doesn't have an extension because he'll get extended next year. So Nick Bosa, I don't think he's going to quite get to that Aaron Donald number, but there's still plenty of wiggle room between the 30 million and the what Aaron Donald ended up getting. So, I mean, would you say Nick Bosa is worth it? Absolutely. Absolutely worth it. He makes this defense way different than what it is without him. Niners need to do it right away.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can't have another season of him potentially blowing up. If he has a better year than he did last year, man. I mean, like I said, we've already heard rumors of him wanting a fully guaranteed contract. I don't know if the 49ers would do that. It just doesn't seem like the kind of thing they would do. So it's good that, they have that 5th-year option. It buys them some time, because I think they're going to need all of the time to work on this one. It's going to be a hell of a contract. I know that for sure. But the good thing is they do seem very committed to keeping Nick Bosa around. And why wouldn't you be, right? So I'm not worried about this one.
And especially too with Drake Jackson, right? And not to make it about a rookie, because we're talking about one of the best defensive players in the NFL. But this is the first time he's going to have a consistent second piece, right? The Niners brought him in hoping him and D Ford would work. Didn't quite work, didn't quite work for reasons out of both of their control, right? D Ford's not getting hurt purposely, right? Don't know why people think that. I don't know why people are mad at D Ford for being hurt. It happens. 2020, obviously the injuries happened, so you can't control that. Last year, Samson Ebukam, you were hoping D Ford was coming back. Ebukam was supposed to be a rotational guy. Now you got a second-round pick, and he's going to be a guy who's going to step into that D Ford role. So it's more important now, I think, that you lock up Nick Bosa as soon as you can, because if you don't bring back Nick Bosa, you're potentially stunting the development of Drake Jackson, because a lot of what Drake Jackson is going to be able to get is those looks that Nick Bosa creates on pressure on the other side. Drake Jackson's going to get a lot of money because of Nick Bosa. So you want to lock him up in order to help that, just the defense. I don't mean to be picking on Drake Jackson, because obviously he'll be fine by himself, but also just the offensive line or the defensive line as a whole. Nick Bosa makes the whole unit better. It's going to benefit Drake Jackson probably the most.
Yeah. And speaking of Drake Jackson, here's a clip of him doing some work today, along with Nick Bosa right after him. Video credit. I think that was David Lombardi, but I'm wrong. I'm sorry. Yeah, so I think you make a great point there as well, Andrew. I mean, Drake Jackson's pretty raw, as we know, so he's going to need, some veterans. A guy like Nick Bosa is, going to be great for him to learn behind. So yeah, definitely want to keep him around for various reasons, right? And that's certainly one of them. Next, Trent Williams also spoke with the media today. All right. And he was actually hyping up a lot of guys on the offensive line, which, made me really happy, because I know there's a lot of uncertainty at the offensive line right now. And so it's just good to hear that some of these guys are coming along. And when it comes from Trent Williams, like, that holds some weight, right? So he said he was impressed by Jason Poe. And he said Aaron Banks is 10 times better than he was last season. That's pretty big. I know Aaron Banks, like, from what I've heard, he looked pretty bad, last season in training camp, but 10 times better. I mean, wow, like, you can work with that.
If you're thinking that just strictly based off of Madden ratings, if he was like a 75 last year, he's a 750 this year, which probably makes him the best player in the game, because the ratings only go up to 99. But yeah, Trent Williams is the guy I want. Like, I've really changed my opinion, because I saw Trent Williams backed up Jake Brendel today as well. I think he said something along the lines of, like, it's almost like talking to a coach. Trent Williams just saying that has already put my mind that the Niners offensive line on week 1, Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, Brendel at center, keeping Brunskill right guard, McGlinchey at the right tackle. Like, that's how much trust I put in Trent Williams. Is I thought maybe Brunskill would move to center and you figure out right guard. If we're a week, not even a week, we're a day into training camp, and we have Trent Williams hyping up a guy like Jake Brendel. Like, it means something. There's got to be something there, and I feel like his hype is only going to increase. So maybe we have a little bit of an inside track to what the Niners' plan is on the offensive line. And not to bring down any other offensive lineman in the NFL, but the offensive line is in a big point of question, right? Like, you just said it. I think it's obvious. We don't know what this offensive line is going to look like. Could you imagine how much more questionable this offensive line if any other left tackle in the NFL not named Trent Williams was here? You know how nice it is to have a guy like Trent Williams on an offensive line with a lot of question marks, because you have 4 spots that you're not sure. McGlinchey, he can be very solid. Can he stay healthy? I don't know. Brunskill, very hit or miss. Aaron Banks in the center position, whoever it may be. We don't know, but we know we got that left tackle who's going to hold it down. If he's healthy, he's going to be good. You know how nice that is to have,
Right.
and to even go on top of it to say the Niners somehow improved on Joe Staley. The Niners improved on Joe Staley with Trent Williams. So hearing him say things like this, like, yeah, take it at face value because it's best shape of your life season, right? That's what we're at. It's the best. I'm in the best shape of my life. That's how you get the attention. But it feels Trent Williams has been around for a while. He's seen a lot of things.
Oh yeah.
For him to say things like this, you got to take them with a little bit more than just a grain of salt. They mean something. They're not just words coming from him. So it's a good sign that Trent Williams is saying things like this.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's huge. And yeah, you're right on what he said about Brunskill. He said he's probably one of the smartest guys in the room. And I agree with you that it seems to be heading in the direction of Jake Brendel being the early favorite for the center position. I know, like, it was kind of like you mentioned, it was a, between Brendel and Brunskill, but like you said, Brunskill probably makes more sense at the right guard position, and Brendel at center. So he's the early favorite, I think. And Shanahan also said that Jake Brendel, he's better than advertised, is what he said about him today. Again, I mean, Shanahan really doesn't throw out compliments like that either. So, when he says something like that about a player, he truly means it. And I think that's a very good sign. Little by little, I'm starting to feel a little bit better about the offensive line. And I think, to this point, the thing that's been so unsettling about the offensive line for me, at least particularly about Brendel, we haven't seen much of him. What are we going off of? Really all we're going off of are these nice things that everyone else has to say about him. David Lombardi had this tweet earlier today, showing his spider graph from when he came out of college in 2016. And, he's just talking about his explosiveness and agility scores. And that is always a thing that if you look at anyone the 49ers draft, especially on the offensive line, their three cone, their agility is always, off the charts. So, I mean, it's good to know that Brendel, falls in line with what the 49ers typically like. And yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of, like I said, seeing it. It's nice to hear these things, but we as fans, training camp rolls around, preseason, that's when it'll really start to feel real, and hopefully we get some
it's
peace
just,
of mind.
It's just so funny, right? Because we've spent 39 minutes talking about all this stuff. We don't know how any of this is yet. We really don't. We just have these words to go off of. We're not going to know what this looks like. Maybe not even until October, right? You got the preseason, you see what they look like the first month. Maybe we work it out. Maybe we don't. I don't know. But man, it's an exciting time. And especially you get the hype of the Brendels, Samuel Womack. I'm hyped on him. I've barely seen him, and I'm pretty hyped on what he can be. And it's so exciting to see. It's a beautiful time of year. Every team's undefeated, right? Everybody's undefeated. There are 32 fan bases at this second that you can talk yourself into a Super Bowl title, because all we can do is go off of these words. I'm sure Trevor Lawrence looks great down in Jacksonville, right? Davis Mills working out in Houston.
Yeah,
man, we're feeling good. And it's really the best time of year for it, is because you see all these positives, and you see things like Trey Lance is looking amazing coming out. He's throwing, and Kyle Shanahan said a thing earlier with Tom Brady always tweaked his throwing motion. And I think that's what makes great quarterbacks. And it's all these exciting things. And I think that's what I like about this time of year is we go through this whole offseason of just what it feels like negativity, right? It's as I said earlier, Jimmy Garoppolo going into Deebo Samuel and all this negative juju, if that's what you want to use. I know he's in Kansas City, but we'll go negative juju for now. now we're hearing the positives of what this team can look like. And that's exciting to me. It's very exciting. And I'm excited to see what it looks like, especially in the preseason. But man, you get 40 minutes out of content on just words, you love it. It's so fun.
Yeah, it is word season after all. Everyone's in the best shape of their lives and, what have you. But I mean, as fans, it's exciting. Like you said, this is our first taste back into we're just so close to meaningful football. So this just brings us that much closer. We went 40 minutes, okay, without talking about Trey Lance once. I mean, that's impressive, I think.
Yeah.
But, we'll talk about him for a bit because he looked good today as well, according to, some of the media members who were there. And this video from Grant Cohn is a slow-mo video of his throws from today, so we can get a real good look at that throw in motion. Excuse me. But yeah, he looked sharp today. 14 of 18, 4 touchdown passes, 1 interception.
But it sounds like the interception wasn't necessary. It sounded like it was an Ayuk bobble.
It bounced off of Ayuk's chest, according to Grant. So, yeah, but by all accounts, it sounded like he looked good today, and Kyle Shanahan pretty much echoed, those comments as well. And, he said he continues to improve each day, and that's exactly what you want to hear out of, someone like Trey Lance, who, he needs to be able to stack up these practices and continue to improve. We love to see it. Charvarius Ward also had a quote about Lance. He said he's going to show the world this season. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to assume it's good. So, yeah, I mean, we're just excited about Trey Lance, okay? How can he not be? And Trey Lance also spoke with the media today. He continues to ooze confidence, okay? He looks and sounds like a QB1, all right? And Steve Young, I guess, is talking with Trey Lance these days. What do you think about that?
It's kind of like the Trey Lance thing, or not Trey Lance, Trent Williams thing, right? It's probably a good sign that you're getting advice from him. And you left off the important thing on the Charvarius Ward quote. He said before he's going to show the world this season, I think he said he's quarterback 1, so he's the face of the franchise. So Charvarius Ward, just casually breaking news for 49er fans. I don't know what we're even talking about at this point, but yeah, it's exciting. Listen, the numbers don't mean much to me, right? Like 14 for 18, 4 touchdowns, interception. Like, oh, that's all cool and all. It's camp, 7-on-7s, all that stuff. But the thing I keep seeing is the confidence on his throws. They said one of his best throws was the Tanner Hudson, who made a nice one-handed catch. But Lance fired it before the linebacker was able to get his head around. It was a good throw. That's the stuff I want to hear, is what not necessarily what the results are, but how confident they were. Like even little things to me where the ball hit off Ayuk's chest, interception. The very next play, he went to Ayuk again for a touchdown. Things like that he has trust in his receivers, that this is the time of year where Trey Lance wants to look good, because this is our first impressions of him, right? We got a little bit in Houston, got a little bit against the Seahawks, got a little bit against Arizona last year. But this is really the first impressions, because now he's the starter. He's the expected starter. And to hear as I said, the 14 for 18, fantastic. That's great. If he does that in the regular season, I am very excited to open the podcast with it. What I want to talk about, though, is just the confidence in the throws. He's trusting these guys. He could easily say, Ayuk dropped that last one, I don't want to go to him just for now. I want to make sure I look good. No, he's showing Ayuk, I have this trust in you that I'm just going to go right back to you. And Brandon Ayuk's a pretty good receiver to do that with. So is Deebo Samuel. So is Juan Jennings. Trey Lance is set up for success. And I know a lot of people want to talk about the offensive line. I think his mobility is going to help a little bit with that offensive line. And we're not talking about Jimmy Garoppolo here. Let's be honest. We love Garoppolo. He's just not a mobile quarterback. I think Lance's mobility is going to help him. Now, am I saying he's going to be – I see people throwing out 4,000 passing yards and 1,000 rushing. Is he going to be that? Probably not. But I don't think he's going to be bad. I don't think he's going to be average. I think he's going to be anywhere from that above average to good range. And that's all the Niners need because they have gotten average quarterback play from Jimmy Garoppolo, and they've gotten to 2 out of the last 3 NFC championship games with it. Trey Lance is in a very good position to succeed right now. He's got a lot of talent around him. He's got the best coach for it, all this fun stuff. When I say we're not going to have answers until October on this team, Trey Lance, we're probably not really going to know until November because he's going to have a game where he's going to throw for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. But then he'll have a game against Kansas City where 150, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, not as exciting. We're not going to really know about him, maybe not until after this season. Really, he's obviously like he's the easy answer for the most excited player to watch for the 49ers this year. But there's a reason for that. He's Trey Lance. He has the physical tools, the explosiveness, all this stuff to be a successful NFL quarterback. And outside of the Jimmy Garoppolo 5-game burst at the end of 2017, we haven't been this excited for a quarterback since Colin Kaepernick. And I think that's a very good comparison to have because that's another quarterback who helped get the Niners to a Super Bowl. Trey Lance, just be good. Like this is so exciting. And if this can run on for 3-4 years, obviously the Niners are very happy. I'm happy. Everybody's happy. What is better than happy Niner fans, right?
I don't even know what that looks like, honestly. So I'd be definitely inviting that. So,
yes.
Yeah. So you made a good point about, him trusting Ayuk. And I think some of that comes from the reps that he's had with him. And he mentioned the same thing with Tanner Hudson as well, because he worked a ton with Tanner Hudson last season. He even mentioned that in his press conference today that, that kind of allowed him to get that timing where he's able to anticipate that throw. And the same thing on the trust aspect with Brandon Ayuk. I mean, you get reps with these guys, you're going to build that trust. You're going to build that timing, that chemistry, all of that. So I think the more reps that he gets, the more we are going to see his confidence in his receivers. And I'm actually we haven't seen it yet, right? But I'm excited. I'm looking forward to him, being able to throw to Deebo Samuel. And, maybe that might not be clicking right away, let's just say, because, they haven't had a ton of time to work together this offseason.
Yeah.
But it will get there, and I'm excited to see it. So, yeah, I mean, just excited to continue following Trey Lance throughout this offseason. And, but let's talk about, some other receivers as well. Juan Jennings, man, I've been hearing a lot about him. The hive is buzzing. He had a good day today, especially in the red zone. I mean, that's what he does best, right? He's a chain mover. He's a red zone target. He's a big bodied receiver. Matt Barrows actually said he had a prolific practice. Those words. Yeah, that's a very big praise. And then Shanahan said that both Jennings and Ayuk have had as good an offseason as they've had since they've been in the league. And a good point that Shanahan made actually was that, for Ayuk and Jennings, this was really their first real lengthy offseason, right? Because the year they got drafted, it was the COVID year where everything was super limited. And the year following that, or last season, they still had some COVID restrictions. So some things were not quite the same as they are at this moment. So, yeah, I mean, I think guys like that are able to benefit from having, the full experience of the off season. And it sounds like they're taking advantage of it. I am excited. You guys know I am Juwan Jennings hive. I said it last season. He is a better Kendrick Bourne. A lot of people agreed with me, but I did not forget the people that disagreed with me.
Well, that's the comparison I've made and people like to take it as a negative because I know Kendrick Bourne has the negative connotation. But the role Kendrick Bourne played is I love George Kittle, right? And there's just this thing that George Kittle's the guy when you need tough catches and you need that first down where realistically George Kittle, not to say he's not physical, not to say he's not tough. That please, I'm not saying that at all. He's not exactly the number one guy I would say is the you need a third down tough catch. Kendrick Bourne was in that role. Kendrick Bourne was a very physical, go up and get the ball type receiver. And he was really their big red zone target in 2020 and 2019 as well. And I think that's what Juan Jennings gives you is maybe yet to be seen if he's a better version. But if you're a third down receiver in Kyle Shanahan's offense, it's such a nice role to be in because there's so many of those drives where Kyle Shanahan says, no, we're just going to run, pass, run, pass, get that first down, get 3 on first, 4 on second, set up a 3rd and 3, quick little pass, get that tough first down. Juan Jennings is perfect for that role. And that's what I'm most excited. So if we're having, what was the word that Barrows used? What was the word?
Prolific.
If we're having prolific days in camps, that's probably a good sign because he's gonna get snaps. There is no Travis Benjamin and Mohamed Sanu's anymore that are going to take snaps. I know they have Ray McLeod and Danny Gray, but I think those are really going to be situational type guys. The 49ers top 3 receivers, last year there was a bit of a conversation with, Deebo, Ayuk, and then there was just kind of a plethora, I'll use big words, a plethora of receivers with Sanu, with Benjamin, with Jennings. And Jennings kind of took that role near the end of the season where he was getting exclusive snaps. He's getting that for a full 17 games this year. So this is if you're on the Juwan Jennings hive right now, like I know you are, Steph, and I have been, you're in a good place. If you're not quite on it, it might be the time. Like jump on the bandwagon before it explodes. I mean, this was a guy, I believe, if I remember correctly, he was undrafted by the Niners, maybe a late pick. Like 2020 feels like 14 years ago. This is such fine details. But the Niners snuck him through waivers in order to get him on the practice squad. There's a reason they kept him. It not quite a fit in 2020, but we saw why the Niners kept him in 2021 and brought him back. And I think it's really all uphill from here for Juwan Jennings.
Yeah, and going back to the Kendrick Bourne comparison, I thought I thought Jennings was on course to be better than Bourne at the time that I tweeted that last season, but he only got better after that. So at this point, if you were to ask me, is he better than Kendrick Bourne? I would tell you yes. And the reason is, one, they have similar roles, as you mentioned, and, I see that as well. But Juwan Jennings is, I would say, more reliable. Kendrick Bourne, and I love Kendrick Bourne again, okay? Kendrick Bourne, he can have really great games, and then he'll have like one game where he's like, drops a pass, a really important pass, or just things like that. So
things like that, yeah.
Not as consistent. Jennings, like I think he's a guy you can really depend on him. And 49ers have a really strong core of receivers right now. I feel really good about where their core is at right now. So
it's funny too because this is. The wide receiver core right now is kind of the depth you expect at running backs with Kyle Shanahan. And the running backs are, I don't want to say they're slacking because there's talent, right? We know how good Elijah Mitchell is. Jeff Wilson's very good. But then after that, do we know what Trey Sermon is? Do we, Jermichael Hasty's had a cup of tea in the NFL. Tyrion Davis-Price, he's a rookie, a lot of, decent sized expectations. But this isn't a Raheem Mostert, Matt Breida, Tevin Coleman, Jerick McKinnon backfield anymore. This is Elijah Mitchell. Hope Jeff Wilson stays healthy and see what else. Jordan Mason's another name. That was the name that was escaping my mind. So thank you, Niner Fanatic. So it's interesting that for the first time we feel really good about receiver. Because even going into last year with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, it was, you have Samuel, have Ayuk. Who the hell's the third?
Mm-hmm.
In 2020, same sort of thing. Ayuk's a rookie. It's exciting, but the only receiver is really Deebo. They just lost Emmanuel Sanders. Is it Dante Pettis' year? I don't know in 2020, right?
Man, that's bleak, man.
Where now it's receiver set. What's Kyle going to do at running back? And then I think that's an easier, and let me spin it positively. I think that's a better question to ask than where's the receiver depth, because the joke I make on the Sprint Right Option podcast all the time that I'm sure everybody thinks is funny, the 900th time I've told it, Kyle Shanahan get 4 yards rushing per carry out of my dad. And I would rather be more questions at running back than receiver, just because Kyle Shanahan is going to get production out of whoever he puts back there because of his scheme, because of the offensive line and all that. Maybe it's a little different now with the offensive line, a little more questionable this year. But I feel good with the receivers, and I feel fine with the running backs, and feeling fine with the running backs with the Kyle Shanahan offense probably means you feel good.
Yeah, I mean, this offense.
I didn't mean to hijack your conversation about
about
receivers and make it about running backs, but I had that thought of it's kind of funny that we're usually so confident in the running backs and more sussy about the receivers, and this year it's totally opposite.
Well, maybe it's just a sign of the times, right? Like you have Trey Lance, you have a quarterback who can make the most of his receivers, or at least you hope that is the expectation. And they have a core at every level of this offense that, should benefit Trey Lance and his growth. Again, maybe the only question mark is offensive line, but that is yet to be seen what that it's going to look like. All right, Andrew, I know we got to get you out of here. So really quickly, just going to run through some of these final updates and we'll close out. Danny Gray, he's expected to miss some time with the tweaked hamstring. We also got some updates on D4 today. He has been excused from minicamp. Kyle Shanahan said he's not doing anything with us. He's not expected to be back with the team. We already, figured this. He's getting a physical done this week, which we could expect is the precursor to him getting released. Lots of dead money there in the next 2 years. But hey, I mean, at least the 49ers get 1.1 million in cap savings. It's something, right?
It's something, right? And it's obviously like it's a bummer. Like as I said earlier, it's not on D4. Like the people mad at D4, like no, it's not his fault. He didn't intentionally get back and neck injuries. You wish it worked out. Like for me, hopefully just he could stay healthy for the rest of his career if it's there. And hopefully he could just stay healthy in general. Like I think that's kind of the key here is just staying healthy. So it's a bummer that it didn't work out, but you live and you learn, I guess.
Yeah, best of luck to D Ford. Whatever comes next for him again, like if he retires, maybe whatever comes next. I mean, best of luck.
I really want to have the conversation of wow, look how good D Ford has turned his career around with the insert team of the year, right? I think that's the best case scenario.
Never know. Yeah, you never know. So yeah, best of luck to him. All right, that concludes our episode. Just one last quick reminder about the giveaway, guys. All right, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and make sure that you send me a screenshot of your subscription, and you'll be entered to win the Frank Gore signed jersey. Again, 2 different ways that you can enter via Twitter or on Instagram. You could send me your screenshots there. All right. Thank you so much, Andrew, for joining me today. This was a lot of fun, and I'm going to have you on all the time during the season, hopefully space buns included.
Any time you ask, I will be here. And I was gonna make the joke, aren't you? Is this the first time you're glad that like you're doing this without Angie? Because if Angie was still here, this would be an hour 45 because Angie and I wouldn't shut up. Because that's what happened the first time, is it not?
That was a really fun episode, though. Like I think I went back and listened to that one, and it was a great time.
It was a good time.
I would love to listen to you guys talk for over an hour. What do you mean?
Oh my god. Might be the only person on 49ers Twitter who wants to hear Angie and I just talk for an hour and a half, hour 45 about nothing.
Oh, I love it. All right. Thank you, Andrew. Yes, love you, Angie. All right. Thank you guys for watching, listening. All right. And enjoy the rest of your week. Go Dubs. Let's go Niners.
Go Dubs. Go Avs. Go Avs.